you.
Okay, good evening and welcome. Namaskar. My name is George Abraham and welcome to Eyeway Encounters. We have changed the day and time because we found that most people found Thursday afternoon not very convenient. So the request was for Friday evening and not 4 o'clock, but 5 o'clock. So we will not be doing a weekly program. We would be doing an event every month on the last Friday of the month. So today is 30th of April and the last Friday of the month. And going forward, we will be coming on air on the last Friday of every month. हर महीने के आखिरी Friday पे हम लोग program करेंगे. Our today's guest is Mr. Piyush Rakhecha, who is an alumni of the Indian Institute of Management, Indore, and he has moved into finance. He is based out of Kolkata, and he runs a company, a finance company, an investment company, of which he will talk a little bit about when he is speaking. He has been in the area of finance management, portfolio management, mutual funds, and so on and so forth for the last 10 years. And it will be an interesting thing for him to tell us about this domain. He will also be talking about various apps and platforms which is accessible for us who are visually impaired to manage our own investments and finance, and where we can get advice and so on and so forth. So we do look forward to this talk. But before we move on, a few house rules. I would request everybody to request Manjima, if possible, to mute everybody. Otherwise, all the participants, please mute yourself so that when our speaker is speaking, there is no disturbance that comes in the way of us hearing what is being spoken and understanding what is being shared. We will not have any questions during the talk. He will finish his talk, and at the end of it, we will have 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A, where you can unmute yourself and ask your questions. You can raise your hands, and then Manjima would kind of unmute you, and you can ask your questions. While the talk is going on, if you would like to ask a question, you can put your question or comment in the chat box, and Manjima would read out the question or the comment when Piyush has finished his talk. So, and then those of you who can put on your videos, if you have no problems with the bandwidth, I would urge you to please put on your videos, but keep your audio or your speakers on mute so that we have a clean audio from Piyush. This meeting is being recorded, and as usual, after the meeting is over, we would be editing it and putting it up on our YouTube channel, which is called Eyeway India. So you will find you will find this particular talk sometime during the coming week on YouTube, and all our past talks, there are about 38, 40 of them. All of them you can access on our YouTube channel, which is called Eyeway India, EYEWAY India. So without taking much of your time, I would invite Piyush Rakhecha, the young entrepreneur from Calcutta, who would talk to us about the world of finance. Over to you, Piyush.
Thank you, George. So thank you for that generous introduction. So when nowadays we see people from Calcutta, just the one question that normally I'm asked is, how is the election going and what is the result expected? But we are not going to talk anything about the elections today. So we'll be straight talking about investments and how you can manage your personal finance. I hope I would be able to help you to invest and maybe take investment decisions in a better way at the end of the session. So let me first come to a book which I read recently, a book named Start with Why. This is a book authored by Simon Sinek. So what he says in this book, and I'll tell you how it's relevant to us. He says that anything we do and everything we do, the first question we should ask ourselves is, why do we do what we do? Or why we have to do what we have to do? So what he says is, everyone knows, सबको पता है कि हमें क्या करना है. Everyone knows what we have to do. Like, let's take an example of this session. We all know we are here to attend a session on investment. How we are doing it? We know that we are logged in through some mobile tablet or computer, and we are listening to this session. But why are we here? The most important question. Or you can say, why do you do what you do in terms of your daily life, in your job or anything? So when we talk about investments, why invest? Why do we have to invest? So I ask this sessions whenever I take this web sessions. I normally do it physically also. So the peculiar answers, the normal answers which I receive is, we invest to save tax. Really, is it why investment is designed, or why we have to invest just to save tax? And otherwise, I hear a more prominent answer is, we want returns. That is why we invest. But why do you want return? Why do you want money in the first place? So we need money to achieve our financial goals. So let's take an example. Suppose a person wants to go from Delhi to Bombay. His goal is to go from Delhi to Bombay. So what's the process? First, he'll look up on the internet, or through a agent. He'll try to find out a particular date when he wants to go. He'll call up the agent, or look up on the internet regarding the availability and the price of the transport, and then he'll end up booking the ticket for his transport, and finally he'll go from Delhi to Bombay. So when we talk about financial goals, achieving our financial goals, it's a process. The process is called financial planning. So let us briefly cover what the entire process of financial planning is. The financial planning starts with identifying your financial goals. It might look simple or complicated in the first place, that how do you identify financial goals? So when I ask this question, I receive answers like, I don't have any financial goal as such. But if you think through it, you will find that each and everyone has a set of financial goals. Maybe a little bit here and there may vary from person to person, but everyone has financial goals. So what are the important financial goals that one has? Maybe if you're married with a child, maybe child education is a very important goal. Maybe buying a house is an important goal for you. And as they say, with everyone there is one goal common, that is retirement. Everyone has to retire one day or the other. So retirement, no one plans for retirement, but I will tell you, retirement is the most important goal which one has to invest and prepare himself for. Because let me give you an important reason for this. Say you will get a loan, you will get a home loan if you want to buy a house. You will get a loan for your education also, for your child's education also. But if you walk up to a bank and ask the person, the relationship manager or whoever, that I want a loan for my retirement, will any bank give a loan for your retirement? Actually, no bank gives a loan for your retirement. So this is a very important financial goal which one should start planning for immediately. So people tell me, I have so many financial goals. Where do I start? And I don't have money to maybe account for all my financial goals. I would say that we should start small, but think big. Look at the bigger picture and prioritize your goal accordingly. हमें ये समझना है कि हमारे लिए कौन सा गोल अचीव करना ज्यादा जरूरी है. उसके लिए हमें पहले प्लान करना है. और जो गोल उतना इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है, अगर हमारे पास, if we plan for our important financial goals and still we are left with some money to invest, some spare fund to invest, then only we should invest for the plan the goals which are not so important. Let me give you an example. As I said, retirement is a very important goal. So what is not so important goal? Traveling, maybe for some it's very important and they need it, I understand. But otherwise, things like traveling, spending on leisure activities are not very important goals. First, we should prioritize and account or invest for our important financial goals, and then we should invest for the goals which are not so important. So now, if you say, like, you might feel that my income and my expenses are almost equal. So I get my income and I spend all of it on my whatever needs are there, and I end up having nothing to invest. So there is an important concept in a book which is pay yourself first. It is a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, authored by Robert Kiyosaki. He says pay yourself first. That means when your income lands up at your in your bank account, you should first invest for yourself, at least for the important goals, and then spend whatever is left over. It is actually, this is very difficult. When I started practicing it, it was very difficult in the initial days, and it felt impossible. Like, you suppose you earn X amount of money and you're spending some of it on by investing for yourself, and you are maybe left with a smaller portion of the X. But gradually you will be used to that. And actually, it's very important. I'm not saying that you should maybe invest a lot of money and have nothing to spend over your important expenditure like utilities, maintenance. Maybe you have home, like house rent or EMIs. You obviously have to pay those. But this habit will in turn help you to at least not spend on unnecessary things before you invest. So now we understand the importance of investment, and I'll come to how much one should invest. Maybe we'll talk at the end of the session. We can have a discussion of, because you might also have this question during the Q&A, that how much should one invest or how much should I invest. We'll come to that, but let us be more generic in the session. So now, coming to what are the places where we can invest. Suppose you now understand the importance of investment and importance of the entire financial planning process. So where should you invest? So there are four important or four assets where one invests, like they are equity, debt, gold, and real estate. I'll cover them one by one. So what is equity? I know some of you must be investing in equities on a day-to-day basis and trading in equities. I feel there are very few investors who actually invest in equities, but more or less there are traders who are looking at just the price difference and want to capture a little profit from their investment. So this is not actually investment, this is trading. But what is equity? Equity is stock, share, or you might have similar words, but it's basically ownership in the company. So if you understand, if you are an owner of a company or if you are running a business, would you just trade and maybe take a profit of 4-5% and just go away? You won't do that, right? You would invest. You are there in the business for the long term. So when you're buying equity, it's usually done for the long term, and which actually means that you are investing. So equity is ownership in the company. Obviously, there are a lot of things to analyze before you buy a company. So that in turn, that again is a full again a different session. So I won't be able to cover the entire thing, but I'll tell you in brief. So before investing in equity, first of all, you take this away from your mind that you need to be very smart or very you need to have a finance degree to buy a right stock for investment. It's nothing like that. It's just that you need to follow certain principles of investment. Read few books of investment. I'll give you certain books at the end of the session which you can read. There are ebooks available also, which are obviously accessible, and you can easily read those books and start your investment journey in equity. Equity is a very it's it involves a lot of patience, discipline, but it rewards handsomely also. So coming to the next investment option that we have, next investment alternative or the next investment asset is called debt. So anything that gives you fixed interest is called debt. Like your bank fixed deposit is debt, your PPF, the Provident Fund, is debt, and there are debt mutual funds which we will be covering in the session. So anything that gives you fixed rate of return or fixed interest. Obviously, when we talk about equity, the first word which comes to our mind is volatility, because returns are not uniform. अगर आप इक्विटी की बात करें तो रिटर्न कभी आपको बहुत अच्छी रिटर्न मिलेगी कोई पीरियड में, कभी आपको खराब रिटर्न मिलेगी, बट लॉन्ग टर्म में अगर आप इन्वेस्ट करोगे तो आप अगर अच्छे जगह पे हो, अच्छे सही चीज पे इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो, तो आपको डेफिनेटली आप उससे वेल्थ क्रिएट कर सकते हो. बट कमिंग टू debt, what is debt? Debt is a instrument which gives you fixed rate of interest, where we just have to, एक चीज हमें ध्यान रखना है जब हम डेट की बात करें, कि जो कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, जो बैंक में हम इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, या जो भी इंस्ट्रूमेंट में हम इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं जो हमें फिक्स इंटरेस्ट दे रहा है, जब तक वो नहीं डूब रही है और वो अच्छे से उसका बिजनेस रन हो रहा है, तब तक हमको फिक्स इंटरेस्ट आता रहेगा. तो वी जस्ट हैव टू सी दैट द कंपनी इज साउंड एंड वी कैन सिंपली एक्सपेक्ट अ फिक्स्ड रेट ऑफ रिटर्न विदाउट एनी वॉलेटिलिटी इन डेट. सो अगर इक्विटी और डेट की बात करें, अगर क्रिकेट, मेनी ऑफ यू मस्ट बी फॉलोइंग क्रिकेट, आईपीएल, तो क्रिकेट को अगर इससे रिलेट करें तो इक्विटीज आर लाइक 4s and 6s, जो आपको क्या है अच्छा रिटर्न देगी. बट अगर आपको मतलब अगर आप एक बैट्समैन के पूरा उसके पूरे इनिंग्स को देखें तो वो 4s and 6s से इनिंग्स नहीं बनती है, उसको साथ में 1s और 2s भी चाहिए, right? So 1s and 2s is your debt and 4s and 6s is equity. So you need a balance, you need to strike a right balance. I'll come to asset allocation where we'll talk about this. So the third asset is gold. Gold, all of us understand, and it's actually there lying idle in most of our houses. It's actually a yellow metal which doesn't have any economic doesn't help the economy to grow or doesn't help the country to grow, but it actually is a safe, it's regarded as a safe haven. So when your other assets are not doing well, that's the time when gold does well, and it actually helps your entire portfolio, investment portfolio, to be stable. Last asset which we are going to talk about is real estate. So real estate is more or less the physical real estate, the asset which we live in, the house we have, that is real estate. So it's a physical asset, but nowadays there are options where you can invest in real estate through online platforms also, which doesn't involve any ownership as such of a physical real estate property, but gives you return linked to the real estate. मतलब अगर real estate का price बढ़ता है तो वो investment आपको return देती है. Those investments are called real estate investment trusts. Because अगर आप real estate की बात करें, if today you want to buy a house and you see that real estate will do well in the next 3-4 years, you need a you need crores, 1 crore rupee to buy maybe a flat in Bombay. So by investing in this real estate investment trust, you can invest 2 lakh or 3 lakh rupees and take advantage of that return. If you see that real estate will do well in the next 3-4 years, you can invest in real estate investment trust, and when real estate appreciates, your fund will also appreciate. So now these 4 are assets, but अब हमारे दिमाग में ये क्वेश्चन आ रहा होगा कि हम अपने लिए किस एसेट में इन्वेस्ट करें, या फिर किस एसेट में इन्वेस्ट करें और कितना इन्वेस्ट करें. So the entire process is called asset allocation. So अब हमें कितना इन्वेस्ट करना है ये हमारे फाइनेंशियल गोल पे डिपेंड करता है. Every financial goal needs to have different asset allocation. So when we talk about your long-term goals, let's divide your financial goals into 3: your long-term goals, your intermediate goals, and your short-term goals. Long-term goals मतलब हर वो गोल जो 10 साल के बाद आप अचीव करोगे. Maybe you have a child who is 3 years old, or maybe you want to buy a house maybe 15 years down the line. Those are all your long-term goals. So long-term goals के लिए हमें कैसे प्लान करना है? Long-term goals के लिए we can simply invest in equity. मतलब at least most of that in equity. हम आराम से 80% long-term goals के लिए जो हम इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं उसको इक्विटी में कर सकते हैं. And if you are young, you can even think of investing 100% in equity for your long-term goals. Because equity एक ऐसा asset है जो आपको बहुत volatile दिखता है. मतलब अगर आप day to day track करो, तो it's actually very very volatile. But in the long term, it actually pays and gives you very good return. So अब हम बात करेंगे आगे कि हम इक्विटी में कैसे इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं. बट for your long-term goals, you can invest a bulk of your investment in equities. Up talking about intermediate goals may be anywhere which is less than 10 years. Maybe let's take an average of 5 years. अगर आपका कोई गोल है जो आपको लगता है कि 5 साल बाद आपको कोई फंड का जरूरत पड़ेगा जिसके लिए आप प्लान करना चाहते हो आज, but you would need the fund after 5 years. So for that, you need to be very prudent in terms of asset allocation. So उसमें आप asset allocation कैसा करना चाहिए? उसमें आपको at least, I would say, not keep more than 50% in equity for those goals. भले ही आपको market कितना ही attractive लगे, but don't keep more than 50% in equity for your intermediate goals. So ये goals क्या हो सकते हैं? ये goals हो सकते हैं कि maybe you are planning for maybe a fund for, you want to maybe travel, maybe a foreign trip you want, which is 5 years down the line, or maybe any other financial goal you have, which is 5 years down the line. उसके लिए plan कर रहे हो तो don't put more than 50% of that in equity, because as I said, equity can be very volatile in the short term, and shorter your horizon, the return expectation should reduce and risk also increases. तो अब risk increase होता है तो वहां पे हम equity को थोड़ा सा reduce करते हैं. तो इसमें we can simply put a 50-50 allocation in between debt and equity. We are not talking about gold and real estate because gold and real estate are very illiquid assets. क्यों illiquid है? अगर gold normally we don't sell gold, right? We don't have the habit of selling gold. It has a lot of emotional value attached to it. So we normally don't sell gold, because ऐसे बोलते हैं ना कि gold वही sell करता है जिसको बहुत जरूरत है, and he doesn't have any other means to maybe have money, and he has to sell gold to maybe account and have money for his whatever emergency need he has. So that's why gold normally people don't sell. And real estate, as you know, is very illiquid. Agar suppose you buy a house worth say 50 lakh rupees, and the house property in your area, the price of the property goes up, and your house is valued at 60 lakh rupees. Would you be able to sell it? No, you won't be able to sell it very easily. It's very difficult to sell the real estate. And I would, for all my friends, I would say, don't invest in real estate for your any other purpose except for staying. You need a house to stay, right? You can go and buy a house for that. There's no problem. But otherwise, don't buy a real estate if you don't want to use it for your self consumption. अगर आपको उसमें रहना नहीं है, अगर आपको घर में रहना नहीं है, तो आप एक और घर खरीद के अपने पैसे को ब्लॉक मत करिए, because it's very illiquid. And when you need your money the most, कोई emergency situation हो सकता है, there may be a health crisis or something where you need a lot of funds. तो उस टाइम उसको आप सेल करके you won't be able to, and even if you sell it, you won't get the right value. तो उसके लिए इसलिए we are allocating for all our financial goals between debt and equity, because they are more liquid and will give you a certain amount of return in the long term. So now coming to your third segment, which I said, the short term goals. Short term goals may be 2 years. 2 years के बाद आपको एक fund का जरूरत पड़ सकता है, maybe for any financial goal that you have. For that, I would say don't invest in equity there. And even if you invest, don't keep more than 20% in equity. So ये asset allocation may seem simple, but when you sit out and do it, it actually becomes very complicated, and you end up requiring a help of financial advisor, because financial advisor will help you keep yourself disciplined, and maybe he will, like, if you need the fund, maybe some emergency comes or whatever happens, and if you want to take out some amount, he will make sure that it is taken out from the right place. So for your short-term goals, don't invest in equity. Even if you invest a very small portion. आपको भले ही कितना, I actually remember talking to my a client who is a pilot. So he said, मतलब he just had a health crisis about a year back when he had to admit his mother. So he actually ended up losing all his savings just because of that, and now he is just beginning to regroup, and again he has started his investments all over again. So now he says, I was just having a discussion with me, he says that let's invest in equity for my my marriage, which I feel that it might be 1.5 to 2 years down the line. Maybe I can earn some money and have more to spend in my marriage. So this actually becomes very, very risky. I would say you may be tempted to invest in equity, seeing the higher returns which it has generated over the last 1 year. It might entice you to invest in equity, but don't do it. Do it for your long-term financial goals. Do it for your intermediate financial goals, but don't do it for your short-term financial goals. अगर आपको लगता है कि 2 साल बाद आपको कोई फंड का जरूरत पड़ेगा, उसको बिल्कुल आप इक्विटी में इन्वेस्ट मत करिए, उसको आप डेट में इन्वेस्ट करिए, क्योंकि जब भी आपको जरूरत पड़ेगा आप बिल्कुल आसानी से उस फंड को एक्सेस कर सकते हैं, उसको निकाल सकते हैं, और आपको बिना आपको जितना आपने सोचा था कि आप if you have a lakh to invest, 1 lakh rupees to invest, and you would need say 1,15,000 rupees by the end of 2 years. If you invest in a FD which gives you 7.5, say 7.5% return, you are rest assured that at the end of 2 years you will get that 1,15,000. But if you invest in equity, हो सकता है वो वैल्यू 1 लाख का 1,40,000 भी हो जाए, हो सकता है वो 1 लाख का वैल्यू 90,000 भी हो जाए. So and there's no point taking losses and taking unnecessary risk investing in equity or investing anywhere. So कभी भी आप invest करें, don't make it a random affair. Randomly आप इधर उधर invest मत करिए. You first identify your financial goals, and based on your financial goals you can take a call कि आपको asset allocation, जो हमने asset allocation discuss किया, asset allocation is basically allocating your money in different assets, like as we said, the most favorable or the important asset classes are equity and debt. इसके बीच में आप allocation कर सकते हैं अपने financial goals के लिए. तो first identify a list of your financial goals. I won't say एक बार में आप 10 गोल 15 गोल आइडेंटिफाई कर लीजिए, because it's very difficult to invest for that many goals. But you identify 4 or 5, at max 5 important financial goal. मैंने एक गोल तो बताया जो सबके लिए कॉमन है, रिटायरमेंट. Retirement is one goal which everyone has to invest for. The question which I face normally is कि retirement के लिए कितना invest करना चाहिए. अगर आप thumb rule देखें तो retirement, if you are investing for retirement, you need 10% of your salary, of your take home salary to go into your retirement fund. ये एक thumb rule है. This might be based on your need, it might vary. किसी को हो सकता है कि और financial goals बहुत ज़्यादा important है, उसके लिए ज़्यादा invest करना पड़ रहा है. He is not able to invest 10% here. But for some it may be that they don't have any financial goal and they don't have any other need to take care of. So they can maybe invest 20%, 25% also for their retirement of their salary. But अगर हम मतलब एक thumb rule पकड़े और एक average पकड़े तो 10% is the number which you should look for. You should actually target that amount. Maybe not now, maybe if not now, maybe a year down the line or 2 years down the line. You have to have that goal that I'll invest 10% of my salary for myself, for my future basically. So ये अब हमने financial goals की बात की कि financial goals कैसे हमें identify करना है, कैसे हमें prioritize करना है, और कैसे asset allocation करना है, कैसे हमें ये decide करना है कि हमको किस जगह पे कितना invest करना है to achieve the particular financial goal, right? So अब हम बात करते हैं कि हम equity debt में कौन से ऐसे जगह है जहाँ पे हम invest कर सकते हैं. अब हमने ये decide कर लिया, जैसे let's take an example कि we want to plan for buying a house 10 years down the line. हमने decide कर लिया कि हमारा goal 10 साल हमें लगेगा achieve करना. This is a time bound thing. So goal जब भी आप goal को figure out करो, make sure you have a time. You have a time in your mind कि इतने सालों में मेरे को ये goal achieve करना है. तो अगर वो goal 10 years down the line है, तो first we need to find out कि अगर मुझे घर खरीदना है, if I want to buy a house today, what's the cost of that house as on today? आप neighborhood, अगर अपने neighborhood में एक property लेना चाहते हैं, एक flat लेना चाहते हैं, You can just find out. It's very easy to find out what's the property price over there. You can just take a educated guess on what is the property price today. So now when you identify the property price today, the second step is you need to account for, क्योंकि आज अगर प्रॉपर्टी का प्राइस से 50 लाख रुपीस है, 10 साल बाद ऑब्वियसली वो 50 लाख नहीं रहेगा. You have to adjust for a concept called inflation. Inflation is the regular rise in prices. हर चीज का दाम, हर चीज का प्राइस बढ़ता है, right, gradually. When we talk about maybe vegetables, fruits, they also, their price also increases. Cost of hospital treatment, obviously now is the unprecedented time. So we all know that cost of treatment is also very expensive, and what it was 10 years ago, it's like double or triple of that today. So when we talk about real estate, we can just take a number like 5%, maybe every year 5% the real estate price is slated to grow or is expected to grow. तो आज अगर प्रॉपर्टी प्राइस 50 लाख है, तो वो 10 years down the line वो प्रॉपर्टी प्राइस कितना होगा, जो फ्लैट प्रॉपर्टी हमें खरीदना है, if we want to buy a house to live in, तो वो 10 साल बाद कितने का होगा. तो we don't, because if we start investing today, we cannot plan for 50 lakhs अगर हमें घर खरीदना है. We have to plan for a higher amount, which is maybe 70 lakhs or 80 lakhs. 10 साल बाद उस प्रॉपर्टी का प्राइस में भी 80 lakhs होगा और 1 crore होगा, whatever that number may be, adjusting for a 5% inflation. It is approximately, I would say, 90 lakh rupees. तो वो आपको 90 लाख के लिए प्लान करना है कि 90 लाख के लिए अगर आपको प्लान करना है, तो आपको आज सोचना है कि आपको एवरी मंथ कितना आपको इन्वेस्ट करना है with obviously a particular rate of return, कि आप 90 lakhs at the end of 10 years you can have 90 lakhs and buy a house to live in for yourself. So ऐसे आप पूरा financial goal का planning करते हैं. These are the steps which you have to take. So now coming to कहाँ हम इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं. इक्विटी और डेट हमने समझ लिया कि जैसे हमने रियल एस्टेट we spoke about. As I said, if you have a long term goal, you can invest 80% or even 100% in equities. So अब हम इक्विटीज में अगर इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो कहाँ हम इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं, और हमें डेट में इन्वेस्ट करना है तो हम कहाँ इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं. So first let us talk about equity. If you want to invest in equity, we can invest either directly, open a demat account. एक demat account होता है जिसमें आप बेसिकली कंपनी के स्टॉक्स आप बाई कर सकते हैं और इक्विटी बाई कर सकते हैं. आप डायरेक्टली एक डीमैट अकाउंट खोल के आप स्टॉक में इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं. एंड द सेकंड ऑप्शन एंड द मोर कन्वीनियंट ऑप्शन इज इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स. अगर आपको टाइम और एफर्ट नहीं देना है, इफ यू आर टू बिजी इन योर ओन वर्क एंड यू डोंट वांट टू devote time and effort like researching on equities, picking the right kind of stock for yourself, you can simply invest in equity mutual funds. तो equity mutual funds क्या होते हैं और mutual funds क्या होते हैं? Mutual funds is nothing but a vehicle. एक vehicle है जो आपको अपने investment purpose, जहां भी आपको invest करना है वो आपको invest करवा देगा. तो mutual fund itself is not an asset, it's just a vehicle जो आपको आपके एसेट क्लास में, आपको इक्विटी में इन्वेस्ट करना है तो देयर आर इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड, आपको डेट में इन्वेस्ट करना है तो देयर आर डेट म्यूचुअल फंड. तो म्यूचुअल फंड इटसेल्फ इज नॉट एन एसेट बट इट इन्वेस्ट्स इन एसेट्स बेसिकली. तो आपको ये डिसाइड, एक बार आपने डिसाइड कर लिया कि आपको से 100% इक्विटी में इन्वेस्ट करना है, तो यू कैन सिंपली इन्वेस्ट इन इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड. देयर आर वेरियस काइंड्स ऑफ इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड. तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल what are the advantages of investing in equities or investing in mutual funds? तो इन्वेस्टिंग इन म्यूचुअल फंड्स में एडवांटेज ये होता है कि हर म्यूचुअल फंड का एक प्रोफेशनल फंड मैनेजर होता है. तो प्रोफेशनल फंड मैनेजर का रोल क्या होता है? ही इज डे इन एंड डे आउट ओनली वर्किंग विद इक्विटीज एंड ओनली वर्किंग विद सिक्योरिटीज टू इन्वेस्ट. वो खाली उसका दिन भर का काम है कि वो रिसर्च करे और बेस्ट हाई क्वालिटी स्टॉक्स इन्वेस्ट करे आपके बिहाफ में. So and the second thing is obviously if you go on and hire a financial advisor just for yourself, कि आपको अपने लिए फाइनेंशियल एडवाइजर चाहिए जिसके लिए आप, जिससे आप रोज कम्युनिकेट कर सको and who advises you on investing in equities, that will be very expensive, right? Because if person is devoting time only for yourself, it actually he has to incur a lot of cost for that. But अगर हम इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड की बात करें या म्यूचुअल फंड की बात करें, तो there are huge amount of investors, there are crores of investors in a particular mutual fund. तो वो कॉस्ट क्या डिवाइड हो जाता है and it actually becomes a very low cost, one of the lowest cost investment option in equities, जहां आपको प्रोफेशनल फंड मैनेजर भी मिल रहा है and you just have to invest, focus on your financial goal and achieving your financial goal. You don't have to worry about returns, you don't have to worry about market ups and downs. A fund manager is there to take care of it. So equity mutual fund, that's why is very convenient if you want to invest in equities, and it's the best, I would say the best option for most of the retail investors. हमारे सबके लिए, हम सबके लिए, I think equity, investing in equities, if you want to invest in equities, equity mutual fund is the best alternative available in the market today. So now talking about debt. Debt क्या होता है? So debt we already have discussed what is debt, and we understand कि वो कोई भी instrument जो fixed interest दे वो debt है. तो अब debt में कहाँ invest कर सकते हैं? We can invest in bank fixed deposits, right? Bank fixed deposits सबको पता है, जो बैंक में FD करते हैं, और हमें अभी almost the rate of interest is approximately hovering anywhere around 5%, 6% kind of range. Not even 6%, I would say rather 5% kind of range. So एक ऑल्टरनेटिव ये हो गया जहाँ पे हम अगर हमारे को डेट में इन्वेस्ट करना है तो हम फिक्स्ड डिपॉजिट में इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं. द सेकेंड ऑप्शन हियर आल्सो इज वी कैन इन्वेस्ट इन डेट म्यूचुअल फंड्स. Debt mutual funds is not a fixed deposit, but it is very similar to a fixed deposit because it invests in places which gives fixed rate of interest. Obviously वो बैंक FD में इन्वेस्ट नहीं करते, नहीं तो फिर बैंक FD में इन्वेस्ट करना हो तो आप डायरेक्टली इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं. There is no research or no requirement of a fund manager there. वो एक्चुअली कॉर्पोरेट्स में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं. बैंक्स आपसे FD, आप बैंक में FD करते हो तो बैंक को फंड मिलता है. बैंक एक्चुअली गोज आउट एंड लेंड्स टू अदर पर्सन, राइट? अदर पर्सन और अदर कंपनी, बैंक किसी को लेंड करता है. तो अब कंपनीज को भी फंड की जरूरत पड़ती है, राइट? कंपनीज लाइक रिलायंस, टाटा, दीज ऑल कंपनीज नीड्स फंड टू ग्रो, नीड्स कैपिटल टू ग्रो. सो दे रेज मनी थ्रू डेट. तो वो क्या करते हैं कि एक आपसे वो पैसा लेंगे और फिक्स्ड इंटरेस्ट आपको देते हैं, जस्ट लाइक बैंक, एंड बट दे ऑफर अ हायर रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट कंपेयर टू अवर बैंक. बट अगर आप खुद से ये सब में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, अदर देन बैंक, इफ यू वांट टू डू एन FD, अगर बैंक में FD करना है, यू कैन सिंपली डू अ 10,000 FD आल्सो. बट इफ यू वांट टू डू ये सब कंपनीज में अगर आपको इन्वेस्ट करना है इन द डेट मार्केट, तब आपको मिनिमम में भी 2 लाख और 10 लाख रुपीज चाहिए. बट इफ यू इन्वेस्ट इन डेट म्यूचुअल फंड्स, एक तो आपका फायदा ये हो रहा है कि द पोर्टफोलियो इज डाइवर्सिफाइड, यू डोंट हैव वन कंपनी रिस्क. ऐसा नहीं हो रहा है कि एक कंपनी में आप इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो और अगर वो कंपनी डूब जाती है, तो आपको अपना पैसा वापस नहीं मिलेगा. इंटरेस्ट, forget about the interest, you won't even get the capital if the company is bankrupt and is not able to pay anything. So अगर ऐसा कुछ होता है तो आपको कुछ भी नहीं मिलता. So here also an element of research, an element of risk is there. So अभी हम इसको रिस्क को मिटिगेट कैसे करें? थ्रू डाइवर्सिफिकेशन. तो अब ये डेट म्यूचुअल फंड में जब हम इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, दे हैव अ डाइवर्सिफाइड पोर्टफोलियो ऑफ सिक्योरिटीज. जस्ट लाइक एक अगर हम इक्विटी पोर्टफोलियो की बात करें तो फंड मैनेजर एक स्टॉक में इन्वेस्ट नहीं करता, बहुत सारे स्टॉक्स में, डिफरेंट स्टॉक्स में इन्वेस्ट करता है एंड मेक्स अ पोर्टफोलियो सो दैट योर, एक कंपनी का रिस्क आपको कभी नहीं है. एक कंपनी अगर अच्छा नहीं करती है तो उसका स्टॉक भी गिर सकता है, मे बी उसके बॉन्ड भी हो सकता है. अगर वो बहुत लंबे टाइम तक लॉसेस कर रही है तो वो बॉन्ड का इंटरेस्ट भी पे कर पाएगी कि नहीं, वो भी क्वेश्चन मार्क होता है. तो ये वो फंड मैनेजर का रोल होता है टू आइडेंटिफाई द राइट स्टॉक इफ यू आर इन्वेस्टिंग इन इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड, एंड आइडेंटिफाई द राइट कंपनीज टू invest in for your debt portfolio or the debt mutual fund that you are investing in. तो वो पूरा responsibility you are transferring on the fund manager. अब let's take an example of अगर आपको से place A to place B जाना है, you hire a transport and hire a driver for that. maybe एक ड्राइवर और एक गाड़ी आपने हायर किया, तो आप क्या चाहोगे कि वो ड्राइवर बहुत रफ चलाए और मतलब एक्सीडेंट होने का चांसेस है, या ड्राइविंग स्मूथ हो, और you are maybe like where you want to, your goal is to reach place B from place A, आप आराम से वहां पे पहुंच जाओ. तो वही आप you want a driver which gives a comfortable ride, right? So अब हम अगर म्यूचुअल फंड की बात करें तो फंड मैनेजर को सिलेक्ट करना वो आपके हाथ में. You can go out and select, read about the fund managers and select the fund manager. That is what is in your hand and you can do. So आपको देखना है कि वो फंड मैनेजर जिसको आप भरोसा करके, जिसके फंड में आप इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो, उसका परफॉर्मेंस, उसका ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड कैसा है. इज इट लाइक वो बहुत मतलब ऐसा बहुत वेवर्ड रिटर्न देता है, कभी बहुत अच्छा रिटर्न देता है, मे बी 50% इन 1 ईयर एंड मे बी -40% इन अनदर, वो बम्पी राइड देता है, या आपको एक स्मूथ राइड देता है, जस्ट गिविंग अ मे बी नॉट मोर बट मे बी 12-15% काइंड ऑफ रिटर्न, बट इन अ कंसिस्टेंट मैनर, जहाँ पे आपको कंसिस्टेंसी दिखती है. आप यू कैन सिंपली गो आउट एंड इन्वेस्ट इन दैट पर्टिकुलर फंड एंड have faith in that fund manager कि वो आपको आगे भी वो consistent return देता रहेगा, because he has a philosophy, he has a process where he is able to generate time and again despite the market volatility, he is able to generate a consistent amount of return. Obviously equity में हम बात करें तो equity में return ऐसा नहीं है कि every year आपको 12% या 15% return दे देगा. Equity is not FD. Equity is not like FD कि आपको every year fixed return देगा. But at least you need to see कि return में volatility मतलब उतार चढ़ाव जितना कम हो, return उतना आपके लिए अच्छा है. Obviously you need a decent return also. So अब इक्विटी और डेट म्यूचुअल फंड की हमने बात की. दिस एक्चुअली फ्रेंड्स इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. एंड ये मैं ये बोलूंगा कि ये ऐसे जगह है जहां आपको डेफिनेटली सोचना चाहिए एंड मैक्सिमम एलोकेशन म्यूचुअल फंड्स में करना चाहिए अपने फाइनेंशियल गोल्स के लिए, बिकॉज इट्स एक्चुअली वेरी सिंपल टू अंडरस्टैंड, वेरी ट्रांसपेरेंट एंड वेरी फ्लेक्सिबल. इसमें एक और फायदा ये है कि आप कभी भी जब चाहो आप फंड को निकाल सकते हो. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि अगर ऑब्वियसली वी एज फाइनेंशियल एडवाइजर नेवर एडवाइज आवर क्लाइंट्स कि आप जब मना है फंड निकाल लो, जब मना है इन्वेस्ट कर लो. Obviously you have your financial goals, and if you take out the money before achieving your financial goals and spend elsewhere, तब वो आपका financial goals achieve नहीं हो रहा. Entire purpose of investment gets defeated. But obviously अगर आपको need है, if you need the money very urgently and it's a emergency, then you obviously need that money, and अब आप उसको आराम से mutual fund से withdraw कर सकते हो. So now one more thing I'm reminded of talking about emergency. Before you start planning for any financial goal, even retirement or child education or buying a house, first have your emergency fund ready. Emergency fund का मतलब क्या है और emergency fund कितना होना चाहिए? Emergency fund का मतलब ये है कि हमें पता नहीं होता कि कब हमें फंड का जरूरत, मतलब important urgent requirement हो सकता है. मे बी हेल्थ नीड हो सकता है, मे बी कोई भी आपका पर्टिकुलर नीड हो सकता है कि आपको यू नीड द मनी वेरी अर्जेंटली. सो फॉर दैट अगर आप लॉन्ग टर्म सेविंग्स को नहीं टच करो तो बेटर है. तो इसलिए आप इमरजेंसी फंड एक प्रिपेयर करोगे. तो इमरजेंसी फंड कितना होना चाहिए? अगर आप सैलरीड हो तो इट्स वेरी इजी टू कैलकुलेट. इट शुड बी एटलीस्ट 3 months ऑफ योर सैलरी. 3 month का आपका सैलरी आपके इमरजेंसी फंड में एकदम सेफ जगह पे पार्क रहना चाहिए कि आपको जब भी जरूरत हो you can get that money almost instantly, maybe a day's notice or on the same day you can get it. तो इमरजेंसी फंड को आपको ऐसा जगह पे इन्वेस्ट करना है जो एकदम सेफ हो और जहां आपको पता है कि आपको इमीडिएटली फंड मिल सकता है. तो एक फंड जिसमें आप अगर म्यूचुअल फंड की बात करें तो आप एक फंड है जिसमें आप इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हो. 2000 लिक्विड फंड्स और शॉर्ट टर्म फंड्स. शॉर्ट टर्म डेट फंड्स आपको रिटर्न में भी कोई वॉलेटिलिटी नहीं है. द रिटर्न्स ऑब्वियसली they will fetch you lower return, but if you want that money you can withdraw immediately and they will definitely offer you better interest than savings bank or savings account. तो आप ऐसे जगह पे अपने इमरजेंसी फंड को पार्क कर सकते हो and you can obviously withdraw when you need it. एक बार आपका, and you can gradually plan for this also. You can maybe set aside 10,000 or 5,000 rupees every month until you achieve that goal of maybe 3 months of your salary. एक बार आपका 3 month say you are earning 40,000 rupees in a month, so 3x of 40,000 is 1,20,000. तो एक बार आपने 1,20,000 आपने accumulate कर लिया, that is a time when you can maybe stop your emergency fund investment, or you can keep that lying idle till you need it for any emergency, and you can invest for your other financial goals. So this, friends, is very important before you set out and plan for any financial goal. As I gave you an example of my pilot friend and client, right, who actually had an emergency and who had to withdraw his long-term savings to account for that emergency. So आपके लिए ऐसा situation नहीं आए वो बहुत जरूरी है. That's why you at least minimum need 3 months of your salary parked in your emergency fund. So now we are spoken in detail about planning for your financial goals. I will obviously take Q&A in the later part of the session. और एक और चीज which George sir and I were discussing is important for all of us to understand, being visually impaired, कि हमारे लिए accessible apps कौन से हैं. अगर हम इक्विटीज की बात करें और हमें अगर डीमैट अकाउंट खोल के इन्वेस्ट करना है, यू वांट टू ट्रेड, से यू वांट टू इन्वेस्ट, ऑब्वियसली आपको ट्रेडिंग करना है तो यू नीड टू टेक स्टेप एंड टेक बाय सेल कॉल इमीडिएटली. आपको बाय करना है तो आपको खुद से डिसीजन लेना है, खुद से करना होगा. तो and it's very very important for all of us to be self reliant and not dependent on any other person. तो अभी कौन से ऐसे accessible apps है? So there are certain accessible apps जहाँ पे आप अपना which companies you can open a demat account with. The first, I would say, the most accessible app, and the one which I use, is Motilal Oswal Financial Services ka mobile app. They have a very good mobile app. I won't say it's 100% accessible, but it's well around 95% accessible for all of us. So it's available both on Android and iOS platform. So you can make a note of it कि मोतीलाल ओसवाल एक accessible app है. इसके अलावा अगर आपको डीमैट अकाउंट खोलना है तो there are certain other options like Upstocks, Zerodha, Angel. Upstocks, Zerodha and Angel Securities. ये तीन और ऐसे कंपनीज हैं जिनके मोबाइल एप्स क्वाइट एक्सेसिबल है. और नॉट ओनली इक्विटी, आपको अगर इक्विटी में इन्वेस्ट करना है, आपको डेट में इन्वेस्ट करना है, maybe you want to invest in mutual funds, all of that can be done through that single mobile app. So Motilal Oswal Financial Services is the one which I'm using. It's very convenient to use and invest in any financial instrument. Maybe buying, अगर आपको stocks directly खरीदनी है, or you want to invest in equity mutual fund or debt mutual fund, you want to invest in SIP. तो SIP क्या होता है, मैं I'll just tell you briefly. SIP are systematic investment plans. The most favorable instrument जिसको जहाँ पे आप अपना goals के लिए plan कर सकते हो. Because when we talk about planning for our financial goals, we normally talk about setting aside a particular amount of money every month for that financial goal. SIP एक investment है जो mutual fund में ही होता है, ऐसा नहीं कि और कहीं होता है. So you don't have this confusion कि I have a SIP but I don't have any investment in mutual funds, because SIPs are just a way of investment in mutual funds. वो एक systematic investment route है जहाँ पे आप every month invest कर रहे हो for particular sum of money, maybe 5,000 a month or 10,000 a month, और वो automatically आपके बैंक से every month debit होता रहेगा without you taking the effort of investing every month. So that is what SIP is. SIP is just a way of investing in mutual funds. So you can start an SIP also using these accessible apps. So talking about accessibility, it's actually, if you see, you can go out and see videos on YouTube on how to use the app. And if you start using it, download app and start using it, you will find out the app itself is very accessible. And if you have any confusion or any difficulty, you can reach out on my email and mobile number, which I will leave with George sir at the end of this session. I will have, if you want, I can share in this platform also. So now coming to the important accessibility features. अब अगर अब अगर मतलब accessibility की हम बात करें तो हमको क्या चाहिए? हमको चाहिए कि we need to first ऐसा ऐप होना चाहिए जो जहाँ पे हम आराम से इन्वेस्ट कर सकें without any difficulty, without any hassle, and a place where we can track our investment also. क्योंकि ट्रैकिंग भी बहुत जरूरी है. ऐसा नहीं कि एक बार आपने फाइनेंशियल प्लान बना लिया, फाइनेंशियल गोल्स अपने डिसाइड कर लिए, तो आपको आगे कुछ प्लानिंग की जरूरत नहीं है. because financial goals and financial plan is also an evolving thing. आज आपका फाइनेंशियल प्लान है, मे बी 2 साल बाद थोड़ा सा फाइनेंशियल प्लान में चेंजेस हो, तो आपको उसके लिए भी इनकॉर्पोरेट करना है. एंड you have to review your portfolio. Maybe you can take a help of a professional financial advisor to guide you in your entire investment process, and he'll help you to understand your financial goals, plan for your financial goals, and also help you to maybe review and monitor your investments periodically, maybe not every day, quarterly, semi-annually, or yearly, as and when as per the individual requirement. तो ऐसा ऐप चाहिए जहाँ पे आप इन्वेस्ट भी कर सको और मॉनिटर और ट्रैक भी कर सको. So this is all we need actually when we talk about accessibility in the financial services world, and when we talk about personal finance, जहाँ पे हम अपनी खुद की इन्वेस्टमेंट्स की बात कर रहे हैं. तो अब what are the do's and don'ts when we talk about investments? Certain do's and don'ts which I would say मेरा पर्सनल लर्निंग, एंड दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट विच आई एम शेयरिंग, मैं अपना पर्सनल लर्निंग आई एम शेयरिंग कि ऐसे कौन से मिस्टेक्स है जो आपको अवॉइड करने चाहिए और ऐसे कौन से प्रैक्टिसेस है जो आपको फॉलो करना चाहिए. सो फर्स्ट, व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट व्हाट आर द इंपॉर्टेंट डूज व्हिच वी हैव टू डू व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट इन्वेस्टमेंट्स, तो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है वी हैव टू बी वेरी पेशेंट एंड डिसिप्लिन्ड. सो व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट पेशेंस एंड डिसिप्लिन, वी मीन कि जब हम इक्विटी, स्पेशली हम इक्विटी की बात करें, तो इक्विटी में पेशेंस और डिसिप्लिन बहुत जरूरी है. मे बी आप आप सोच रहे हो, maybe you have seen the past performance of a particular equity fund जहाँ पे आपको दिख रहा है कि 15% का रिटर्न आया on an average, मतलब 5 साल में उसने एवरेज 15% का रिटर्न आपको दिया है और आपने उस फंड में इन्वेस्ट किया। फॉर टू ईयर्स यू आर इन्वेस्टिंग एंड मतलब 2 साल बाद आप देखते हो, यू लुक बैक एंड सी कि आपने जो डिसीजन लिया था मे बी आपको लग रहा है वो गलत है, मे बी द फंड हैज गिवन नो रिटर्न or even negative return in 2 years. I've seen a lot of people close their investments, close their SIPs, stop investment for their financial goals at the start of this pandemic when the equity market seriously corrected. Equity market क्या होता है ना, जब कोई भी uncertain event होता है, uncertainty होता है, equity market doesn't like uncertainty. तो वो market एक बार गिरता है. But when things get back to normal, it actually recovers also. So अब मैं इसलिए बोल रहा हूँ कि यू हैव टू बी वेरी डिसिप्लिन्ड एंड पेशेंट और डोंट ट्राई टू टाइम द मार्केट ऑन अ वेरी डे टू बेसिस कि आपको लग रहा है कि इक्विटी मार्केट बढ़ेगा तो आप यू इन्वेस्ट अ लंप सम इवन फॉर अ शॉर्ट टर्म गोल। डोंट डू दैट। एज आई सेड, डोंट इन्वेस्ट फॉर योर शॉर्ट टर्म गोल्स इन इक्विटीज, चाहे आपको कितना ही लुक्रेटिव लगे, चाहे आपको कितना भी लगे कि यू कैन मे बी डबल योर मनी इन 3 years or 2 years time by investing in equities. Don't do that because equities are very uncertain and it's a friend. Definitely equity is a friend of yours only if you are investing for the long term. So अब what are the don'ts जहां आपको ध्यान रखना है कि क्या क्या आपको नहीं करना है। एक चीज जो इंपॉर्टेंट, मैंने ऐसे ही बोला, मैंने आपको बोला ही था कि डोंट बी इम्पेशेंट एंड इन्वेस्ट इन इक्विटीज फॉर द लॉन्ग टर्म एंड डोंट फॉल इन ट्रैप ऑफ स्पेशली ये डेरिवेटिव्स। बहुत लोगों ने डेरिवेटिव्स सुना होगा, बहुत लोग नहीं जानते तो आपके लिए अच्छा है। आई वुड से डोंट look at it as a very lucrative investment for maybe generating income in the short term. Don't do that. I've seen people earning lakhs and lakhs of rupees in derivatives बहुत risky instruments होते हैं जिसको futures options, maybe you have heard this word or you have tried these investments also. बहुत अच्छा लगेगा आपको, maybe you have seen people earning money, but just see how people end up, because doesn't matter how you start और आप कितना successful हो when you start. It's the important thing is how you finish and what do you end up with. And I've seen people ending up losing lots and lots of money because it is actually looks very attractive. आपको बहुत entice करेगा कि you can maybe earn lots and lots of money in the short term. आप अपना पैसा को, अपने कैपिटल को मे बी 3 दिन में डबल कर सकते हो इन्वेस्टिंग इन फ्यूचर्स एंड ऑप्शंस, बट यू कैन लूज योर कैपिटल आल्सो इन 3 days. तो व्हाई गैम्बल, व्हाई टेक दैट रिस्क ऑफ लूजिंग ऑल दैट मनी? अगर मतलब इट्स नथिंग आई वुड से, इट्स जस्ट people just take a educated guess when they invest in and when they take a call in derivative, and it's, I would say it's an equivalent of gambling. आप कसिनो जानते हो, कसिनो में लोग गैम्बल करते हैं. Derivatives or trading is, for me, is more like that, more like gambling, जहाँ पे आप gamble कर रहे हो, and I've seen, and it's a very improbable thing that you will end up making money. I've seen more than, मतलब आप अगर ये भी देखो, अगर stats भी देखो, तो more than 85 to 90% people lose money by trading or taking by investing in derivatives like futures and options. So don't do that. This is, and ये मैं आपको पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस से शेयर कर रहा हूँ, बिकॉज जस्ट टू शेयर माई एक्सपीरियंस before my this thing MBA, my from this thing IIM Raipur. So I मेरे ग्रेजुएशन के टाइम में I used to trade in derivatives a little bit, और I made a lot of money, but I ended up losing not only what I made but even more than that. Even some of my capital got eroded. So ये एक personal learning है, and I don't want you to make the mistake what I made. So to all my clients also I say, never invest in derivatives or never take a call in derivatives just based on greed, because you might end up losing a lot of money. Now, coming to the end of the session, I'll just take up question and answer in a short while, just letting you know what I do basically. So I run a financial planning and a wealth management firm here based out of Kolkata, where I help you plan for your financial goals, invest for your financial goals, and take the responsibility or take the burden of maybe monitoring and reviewing your portfolio on a regular basis, so that you just have to you don't have to worry about your whether your financial plan is on track for you, basically your financial goals. You are on track to achieve your financial goals or not. So basically, I help you invest, and it's not the just the process of advising. I have my own investment portals, and it's the operational wise also. It's a very hassle free process if you plan if you want to invest, and if you plan to invest through me. So right from tracking your investment yourself to maybe getting your transaction done from just a phone call or a WhatsApp. So that is how easy it would become for 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 my that's how my clients work basically. So I plan for financial goals. I invest for I actually take care of the operations and the investment process also, and make sure the most important thing is to make sure you achieve your financial goals. So thank you. I'll now take the questions.
Yeah, Piyush, before people ask questions, can you just tell us what this derivative is
Yeah.
uh, before we start investing it or running away from it? We should know
Yeah,
what
sure,
it
sure.
is.
So I'll just briefly. Actually it's a very complicated instrument to start with. And as Warren Buffett, in the words of Warren Buffett, he's the